Welcome to our weekly broadcast of the African Treasures. Here we bring to you African arts, culture, and music. We also discuss issues of concern to people of the African descent in America, the Caribbean, South America, Africa, and all over the world. We invite you to come and see Africa in a positive light. So stay tuned and tell your friends to do the same.
Welcome to another episode of the African Treasures. I'm Dr. Mike Okeke, your host. My guest today is a man best described as a catalyst in today's global community, a special child of Mother Africa, a man who's touched lives, built bridges between nations, and a man who needs no introduction, the Honorable Ambassador Andrew Young. Welcome to our show.
Very good. Good to be with you.
Welcome to African Treasures.
Thank you.
So let me be the first to thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule to be with us. I know it's been very difficult. I've been trying to get you here for the past 7 months.
Well, it's hard for me to get here because I've been back and forth to Africa so much.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Let me get to the point right away. So you started as an ordained minister in the Christian faith, and you were one of the pioneers of the civil rights movement, and you served as a top aide to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then you moved into public life. You served in the U.S. Congress, and then you were appointed the ambassador, United States ambassador to the United Nations. And during your office there, you worked vigorously to secure independence for the countries of Namibia and Zimbabwe. And then you served 2 terms as the mayor of my own city, my home away from home, the city of Atlanta. And I want to tell you that...
And then co-chairman of the Olympic Games. But you know, back before all of that, in Sunday school and in my church life, I was planning to go to Angola as a missionary.
No kidding.
And in seminary, my wife and I signed up, but the Portuguese at that time were not encouraging any more Americans to come in. And so I came to Georgia because I couldn't get clearance to go to Angola. So my interest in Africa goes back to really the church. My parents were educated by missionaries from the north, New England mostly, in New Orleans. And we always had African students in our home for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. In fact, when I left and went away to college, some young African students moved and took over my room. So it's...
I hope you're not angry about that.
No, it was because my parents felt that the education they had received at the hands of the church had to be passed on. So both my brother and I have been very active. He's served as honorary consulate for Liberia. He's worked quite a bit in Nigeria, in Cameroon, Congo, Brazzaville. He speaks a little French. So he does better than I do. But it really, our commitment to Africa and our involvement with Africa started in Sunday school.
In your family too? And
my family. And so, I mean, the head of our YMCA in New Orleans was consulate for Liberia. And our Y had a YMCA. Had a partnership with the YMCA in Monrovia. So I grew up. Then I went to Howard University, and one of my best friends, one of my inspirations as a student, was a Nigerian by the name of Odeku. Emmanuel Latunde Odeku. And he finished Howard University in 2.5 years with double majors in chemistry and physics and double minors in biology and psychology. And he was probably the smartest person I ever knew.
Do you know where he is now?
He died.
I'm sorry about that.
But he became Nigeria's, West Africa's first neurosurgeon. He left Howard, he went to McGill in Canada, but he was doing neurosurgery every morning. He was the dean of the medical school there at Ibadan, and he was serving with the health service. So he literally, and even as a student, he only slept 4 hours at night and 2 hours in the afternoon.
Amazing.
And studied all the time. So he literally worked himself to death. But what it means is that my involvement with Africa was always at the highest level.
Ambassador Young, since you left public life, you've been very busy, extremely busy, and you've continued. You've served as the chairman of the law companies group or something like that, and currently you are the chairman of the Leon Sullivan Foundation or Summit.
All of those, when I left the mayor's office, law engineering was purchasing Sir Alexander Gibb and Partners, a British company that had offices in 32 African countries. And I went to work with them largely because I felt that the lessons we had learned here about developing an economy and growing a free enterprise and in a religious and democratic environment was something I wanted to share with Africa. So I served as their vice president for international affairs for a while. When the Olympics was over, Carl Masters, a Jamaican banker, who was really a banker with the Bank of Montreal in Canada, and I decided to form a company, Good Works International. He was on the Toronto Olympic Committee, and I was on the Atlanta Olympic Committee, and we were sort of competitors, but we realized, we raised $2.5 billion for the Olympics here. And I said, if you can raise $2 billion for a 2-week track meet privately, why couldn't we do that to help feed the hungry, clothe the naked, heal the sick in Africa?
Ambassador Young, please hold that thought. We're going to pause for a station break, and we'll come back, we'll elaborate on that. We'll be right back. More from the Honorable Ambassador Andrew Young.
We are bringing the treasures of Africa from all parts of the world straight to you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alfred McClendon, Director of Piedmont Dental Group. My staff and I will continue to provide affordable and the best in cosmetic and general dentistry for you and your family. Come let us brighten your smile.
The Piedmont Dental Group is located at 3490 Piedmont Road in Suite 230, where our patients are treated with the state-of-the-art in dental technology. And remember, giving you a beautiful smile and healthy teeth is our priority.
This segment is brought to you by Hillendale Medical Associates, and our clinic is located at 5910 Hillendale Drive, Suite 202 in Lithonia, Georgia, 30058. Call us at 770-808-0092.
Welcome back again to another segment of the African Treasures. Our guest today is the Honorable Ambassador Andrew Young. Welcome to the show. And as we were saying before the break, you were trying to shed a little light on the Leon Sullivan Summit, which you are the chairman of.
Well, I'm the chairman because just before he died at the summit in Accra, Ghana in 1998, Dr. Sullivan was standing there with my partner and Lamont Godwin and I, and said, look, I'm 79 years old, and I don't know how long I'll be able to carry this on. He said, I really need you young fellows to carry it on. I said, well, Dr. Sullivan, I'm almost as old as you are. I'm 71. Back then I was not quite 70. I was 69.
Right.
And I said, but with Carl and Lamont, I will be glad to support them. We will make sure. And what Dr. Sullivan saw was that the future of Africa depended on the Africans, the people of African descent who had come to America and to England and to Canada. And he thought that these summits, bringing back people of African descent, meeting with African leadership, were building a bridge. Now, there's a precedent for that. India's development has occurred because Indians who were educated here went back and invested and set up high-tech programs in India. All of China's growth and development, while Americans put a lot of money into China, the majority of the money in China comes from overseas Chinese.
So my question then is,
Africans need to be going back to Africa, seeing how we can help in the growth and development.
Right.
Now, it's not just an African and people of African descent, but it's people who are interested in Africa.
Okay.
So we will have doctors, we will have teachers, we will have people in agriculture, we will have people in energy and resource development, I think that the White House announced that President Bush would probably even come by
to the summit. In Abuja.
It's hosted by President Olusegun Obasanjo in Nigeria.
Yes.
And he has already had responses from about 15 African heads of state.
Okay.
So we're bringing together government, big business, education, health, from Africa and America, largely to get to know each other, to share ideas about best practices. Right now, my partner and I and our staff are helping Angola to build a port.
Okay.
And we've been discussed with, I said to a group of Africans who came here that when I came to Atlanta, the Atlanta airport was one runway and a temporary office building, a Quonset hut. And I said, now it's the busiest airport in the world. And our airport generates as much money for our citizens as Nigeria's oil or Angola's oil generates for its citizens. And we now get almost 25% of our oil comes from the African continent now.
Okay.
So there's tremendous partnership potential there.
Okay.
And the summit in Dr. Sullivan's vision was that it would take time, but Africans and African Americans getting to know each other on a regular basis would build a cultural, a technical, and investment bridge between Africa and America.
Is the organization making any efforts to involve Africans who are here?
Well,
clearly. Because to be honest with you, I didn't know anything about the summit until I came to your office 6 months ago. And you've had the summit 5 times now, Libreville, Gabon, Dakar, Abidjan.
And Zimbabwe.
And Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything. And I don't think a lot of Africans who are here know anything about it. So how can we be involved? How can we be included?
Actually, we have worked through the African organizations. There's an organization of Nigerian physicians that's been involved. And we have sent invitations to all of the official organizations about bringing their leadership. We have not done much in the way of mass mailings, but there is a website. And we do have offices in Washington, 1900 K Street. But the Leon Sullivan Summit is listed in the telephone book, as is Good Works International. We're having a charter plane going from Atlanta on the 12th of July, and the cost is $3,500 for the entire trip, round-trip fare. They have quite nice hotels in Nigeria, in Abuja. All the hotel and food. So all of the expenses will be covered for that. And we'll be leaving here on the 12th, and we'll be back on the 20th of July.
Oh, I thought it was nice.
And we're trying to make sure that the leadership of many existing African organizations and businesses. There's a lot more business activity going on between the U.S. and Africa than I knew. And there should be more. But we don't know each other well enough. But, Africa's telecommunications business is ahead of Atlanta's.
In what way?
In the way that you get GSM phones in Africa that can call all over the world.
That's true.
We still can't do that too well here in Atlanta.
And you were in Nigeria for the election last month.
I was in Nigeria for the inauguration, but it was really, you know, Nigeria is about half the size of the United States. Maybe not quite half, 40%. But it's 130 million people. And they had an election. They had some difficulties. But when the press said to the president, why didn't you straighten out the problems in the Delta region?
Okay.
He said, why didn't Clinton straighten out the problems in Florida? And it's for the same reason, because our elections are run by states.
Okay.
Nigeria's elections are run by states. And there is a democratic process that is considering the appeals in the Delta region. And Nigeria has a very sophisticated legal system. And it's working.
Yeah.
It works slowly, as legal systems do all the time, but for the most part, an administration which was headed by a Christian president and a Muslim vice president got 62% of the votes around the country. And it bodes well for the future of Nigeria.
Well, where do you see the future of Africa? Because we have a problem. Our major problem is corruption. I'm ashamed. I mean,
let me tell you something.
I'm not proud to admit it.
Well, okay, but let me say,
I'm not proud
read American history.
Okay.
The British and the French were convinced. They called George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams hooligans who were corrupt. And they talked about the corruption in the United States. They talked about the diseases that would plague us.
Right.
See? And it's the arrogant way that people talk about people that they don't respect.
Okay.
And now, that doesn't mean that there's not corruption in Africa, but corruption in Africa is not as bad as corruption in Russia.
Okay.
Or China or India.
All right.
And we send people to jail every year for corruption here in the United States.
That's the truth.
And corruption requires two. It requires the hand that receives, which is the African hand in this.
Yeah.
But there's also a hand that gives.
Exactly.
See? So that you can't say corruption is an African problem. Corruption is a problem, and what I say all the time is that you have to learn, and Africans are learning, that you can make more money honestly in a growing economy than you can steal in a dying economy. Abacha killed the economy. He never was able to use any of the money he was supposedly stole. Mobutu never was able to enjoy the money he stole. But on the other hand, there's a fellow by the name of Omaro Diko, who they said stole $4 billion from the Nigerian treasury in the Shagari administration. I knew Omaro, and he was in North Carolina living with friends of mine and was virtually penniless.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. But the Nigerian press is the lioness, connivingest. Well, it's like the British tabloid.
What a problem.
See? What I'm saying is that to know Africa, you have to be there.
Yeah.
If you look at our headlines and if you look at our news, all you see is murder, murder, murder.
Exactly.
But life goes on in Atlanta. Same thing is true in Nigeria.
We're not different from anybody else.
We're not any different from anybody else. And this huge, big country has problems like every other country. But it also is growing. It also is thriving. And the people who get in trouble are the people who are going there looking for trouble. I mean, these 419 things never bother me because I'm not trying to get rich. I'm not trying to make any money on the sly. But
Ambassador, you know more about Africa than more Africans.
if you're trying to be slick and get rich quick,
right?
You will be taken advantage of.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to pause for a little station break, and we'll come back and talk some more. Thank you.
For
past 10 years, the orthodontic clinic of Dr. Craig B. Williams has been creating beautiful and winning smiles on adults and children throughout Metro Atlanta.
Your smile says a lot about your self-confidence.
Using the latest technology, our team of dedicated professionals works to give you the beautiful and winning smile that fits your budget. Our clinic is conveniently located near South DeKalb Mall at 2855 Candler Road, Suite 12 in Decatur, Georgia. Our phone number is 404-243-3210.
I'm Dr. Craig B. Williams. My staff and I would like to salute Mother Africa as we continue to provide the best orthodontic care in Metro Atlanta for adults and children.
There is a lot more to Africa than wild animals and big trees. Tune in weekly to the African Treasures program and learn more about the modern-day Africa and the African people.
One cannot fall in love with that which they don't know. So remember to tune into African Treasures weekly. And keep in mind, to love Africa is to know Africa.
Welcome back again to the final segment of this interesting episode. My guest is the Honorable Ambassador Andrew Young. Yes, sir. We were talking about the problems in Africa and the perception of the world.
But if we're going to have a global economy,
right, sir,
it must include Africa. Right now, Europe, the U.S., and Asia are in recession. South America is in recession. Free enterprise needs to grow. The growth area for the free market for the global economy is the African continent. And we're beginning to see that. And if the rest of the world's economy is going to come out of its slump, it's going to be because Africa is involved.
Okay.
Africa is the richest country on the face of the earth, but it needs the cooperation of those of us of African descent who are more comfortable with the problems and the people of Africa to help in its development. And that's what Dr. Sullivan dreamed of. We have teachers for Africa, we have bankers for Africa. I should come back and tell you that I was in a meeting in a gathering in Senegal where African traditional healers were curing AIDS.
Whoa.
And where the Ford Foundation went over and did the blood work. And of 62 cases that they studied, in every one the viral load went down, the T-cell count went up, and people went back to work. There are miracles happening in Africa. And I think that Africa is the hope of the world. And that's one of the reasons why we spend so much time there. Because our growth and development and the growth and development of the world, I think, is dependent on our building a bridge to this wonderful continent. You know, Dr. King used to say that unearned suffering is redemptive. Well, the suffering of the hundreds of millions. I was in Goree Island, and the estimate is that some 200 million people were enslaved out of Africa. That kind of suffering is not in vain. And somehow we've got to bring back the dreams and the hopes and the love of our ancestors, as we would say, in Africa.
Ambassador Young, I cannot agree with you anymore. I think I wish we had time to go into more of this, because I'm staying here just listening to you. Thank you for gracing our show with your presence, and we wish you well, and I hope the summit goes very well, and I would like to be involved at some point.
I hope you can join us.
And thanks for being on our show. We bring this segment to an end, and thank you for watching.
10 years now, the Metro Ebony Pages has been the only directory that caters to the minority communities in Metro Atlanta. For businesses trying to reach the minority communities, the Metro Ebony Pages is your vehicle. Individuals and families looking for services within the community, look first in the Ebony Pages. You may reach us at 404-209-8654.
Mother Africa has been waiting for you to come home. So why don't you pay her a visit on your next vacation?
This show is brought to you by the following sponsors. Dr. and Mrs. Samson Obuchi of Amici in Anambra State, Nigeria, currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. and Dr. Mrs. John Wangu of Ogidi in Anambra State, Nigeria, currently residing in the state of Connecticut. Dr. and Mrs. Ifejika Okonkwo of Umudim in Nnewi, Anambra State, Nigeria, currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Christopher Mwoma, President of the Riverside Discount Pharmacy Limited, 705 South Gordon Road, Mableton, Georgia. Telephone number is 770-732-9137.
Thank you for watching, and please join us again next week at the same time as we continue to share with you the treasures of Africa.